Welcome to Diverse Orange. Our conversations on Tuesday is about diversity here in Central Florida. My guest today is Tamara Nelson. Welcome, Tamara.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, Tamara, I know you were born in the United States and grew up mostly in Central Florida, but where does your family come from?
Yeah, so my parents are from Jamaica and Barbados. So my father side of the family, all from Jamaica, my mother's side, Barbados. And then my parents moved to New York where they met. And then me and my sisters were born in New York, but then we moved to Florida when I was a young age, around 4 or 5. So I grew up in the Central Florida area.
And growing up in your home, you certainly had your culture. What about when you went out? Were you known as a Caribbean kind of person, or were you just another kid on the block?
Right. I think my peers, so growing up childhood wise, there wasn't too many, or I didn't come across too many Caribbean kids. And if they were, we just weren't really having conversations about our cultural identity for whatever reason. But I know that my peers probably sensed that I was different. So I had a lot of Black American friends and also friends of other cultural backgrounds, but there were things that I didn't connect with in terms of like Black American culture. So certain foods they would tell me about, and I was like, what is that? Or I've never had that. Or they would see the food that I was eating in my household and, would also have the same like questioning look. So there were things that they could sense about me that were definitely different, but we probably just didn't have like actual conversation about our cultural identity.
What were some foods that would have been different from the folks around you?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I had both the Bayesian, so Barbados and Jamaican influence in terms of food. So there was a lot of curry, jerk seasoning in every type of food. So like curry goat, oxtail, porridge, things like cuckoo, which is from Barbados, saltfish, just all those like classic traditional Caribbean foods. But a lot of my like American friends, they just weren't familiar with that at all.
And did they tease you about that, or were they like interested about that, or were they like disdainful? Or
I would say it was a mixture of both. I would have some friends that would be curious and like, oh, I want to taste that, I want to try that. And then some friends that are like, ew, you eat what? And why does it smell like that? So there's definitely a mixture.
Yeah. What other things you mentioned besides food, other things that maybe stood out or were new to you?
Yeah, I would say music was definitely something that stood out culturally. So just growing up listening to soca, reggae, dancehall music, and my parents also played American music too. So I kind of got a mixture of everything. But that was also a point of maybe like disconnect with some of my American friends because they were not accustomed to Caribbean music. Barely anybody, if you're not from the Caribbean, most people don't even know what soca is. So there was that. Like if I went to an event, a Caribbean event with Caribbean music, maybe some friends wouldn't have interest in coming because they don't understand the music or they're not accustomed to it. They don't know how to dance to it. I also danced growing up. And I was on, both American dance teams and also Caribbean-based dance teams. So that was dance and music was a huge part of my cultural connection and upbringing as well.
And would you say how did you relate to the African American culture? And
yeah.
Because someone looking at you would probably say, "Oh, she's African American,"
right.
Not, "Oh, she's Caribbean American," and you are African American, but you're also Caribbean American, I think, right?
Right.
How do you identify?
Right. I more so identify as Black. So if we're talking like racial identity, I tend to say Black because I feel like the term Black is in more so inclusive. And even though like if somebody says, oh, you're African American, I'm not going to say like, no, I'm not, because yes, technically I am as well. But I don't quite like culturally when I think literally African American, although our ancestors are from Africa, I can't say that I connect with African culture per se. So that's why I don't tend to like identify myself as African American. I more so say Black. But I also tie that with, but I'm also Caribbean American as well.
We're all a big mix of a lot of things, right?
Yes.
So what have you, so when you got to college, you were more surrounded with people of your age that were of Caribbean heritage, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So I went to UCF for both undergrad and my master's. But during undergrad, I became connected with CSA, the Caribbean Student Association. And that was where I met other students who were like me. And that was a very pivotal point in my life because prior to that, I never really had close Caribbean friends. So it was nice to be able to connect with peers who liked the same music, who understood the music, the dance, the food, and we could share in that. I was also on a dance team, a Caribbean dance team at UCF, which is called Collision Dance Team. And that was major for me too, because that was the first time that I had found a dance team that was everything that I've always wanted, with both sticking to primarily Caribbean music and also traditional Caribbean dances. So that was like heaven for me in college.
What is something of Caribbean culture that you think is of most value for someone not of Caribbean culture to know about or to learn or to experience?
I think definitely the music. I think our music is just so full of life and energy. It's so unique. So I think for someone who's not familiar with the culture, that may be something to tap into, become familiar with, because it's just such a major part of our culture. Carnival is also something that I think everyone should experience. Carnival, there's different Caribbean carnivals on every island has their own carnival. In the US, different states have carnival. Canada, Toronto, they all have a carnival, and it's like a huge celebration. There's music, there's just dancing. It's like an all-day thing. I think that's something that I would definitely recommend folks experience. And Orlando has carnival, which we just had a few months ago. And yeah, so those things I would definitely recommend: the music, and then experiencing carnival, and of course the food. Like, our food is amazing. So there's a lot of different Caribbean restaurants in Central Florida, all over the US, all over the world. There's Caribbean restaurants. So those would be my recommendations.
Well, with your parents being Jamaican and Barbadosian,
Bayesian or Barbadian.
what would you say is the differences in those two cultures?
Yeah, so I think so. There's a lot of commonalities between Caribbean islands, but I guess if I was looking at Jamaica versus Barbados, maybe musical influence would be one of the biggest differences. So in Barbados, the influence is more so on soca music, and in Jamaica, you're probably going to get more of the reggae dancehall type of music. And then there's differences in foods. So like the traditional dishes of different islands. So in Jamaica, you have, the jerk chicken, you have curry goat, oxtail, which you will also find on other islands as well. But in Barbados, again, you have flying fish, you have cuckoo, and there's...
What is cuckoo?
Yeah, so cuckoo is kind of like a, oh, it's hard to explain. I would think of it like a kind of like a cornmeal type of consistency, and it's like a thick, um, so hard to find the words, but it's usually made with, there's like gravy that you put on it, and then there's usually you can pair it with fish and or different toppings, but it has a, I guess if you were to compare it to like American food, maybe like a very thick mashed potato type of consistency, but it doesn't taste or isn't like mashed potatoes at all.
Right. So
Yeah.
consistency like mashed potatoes or grits or porridge or
Right, but a very thick, has a very thick
okay,
pasty consistency. Yeah.
cool. Well, it's been great to talk to you, Tamara. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for bringing new additional foods and music to our awareness here in Central Florida.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching this issue of Diverse Orange each Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. Also, I do a Playfully Orange about arts and culture here in Central Florida on Thursdays. Thanks, everyone.